Hello and welcome to Fitlab's Tips from the Bunker Volume 7. Today we're going to look at the principles of training and how they might influence how we design a training program, or how you might design a training program if you're doing your own training plan, and how each of these principles has a big impact on whether or not you're going to improve, how you're going to improve, and if you're going to get faster on the bike. So without further ado, we'll rip into them and go through each one. I'm going to also use the ACSM, which is the American College of Sports Medicine's definitions of each of these as well, just to help clarify them a bit better as well. So the basic training principles are overload, specificity, recovery, progression, reversibility, individualization, and periodization. So lots of big words in there, but we'll go through them and they make a lot of sense once you start knowing what they're trying to say. It is also, when you start looking into this, and if you Google it to try and find what these are, there's often a different arrangement of each of these principles, or there might be a few different principles, but I think I've added to them over the years, and so there's a variety of these, but the basic principles are the same with overload and specificity and things like that. So we'll go through them now. So the first one, overload. So put in the description, they talk about the exposure of tissues to a greater than accustomed to training stress. So the idea here is challenging current fitness and performance levels induces improvements, but you've got to watch that you don't overload too much, or you end up with, or you do inadequate rest where you're not recovering properly, because that can lead to injuries and overtraining and things like that. So the big thing here is we need to overload our system. So if we've been doing an hour a day of aerobic work, this might mean that we need to overload it by going to an hour and 10 minutes or an hour and 20 minutes, or maybe want to increase the pace that we're at. And it will apply to all different areas that we're trying to train. So that might mean overloading our strength system by doing more weights, more reps, or it might mean overloading our anaerobic system by doing more anaerobic type efforts. So whatever system we're trying to train, we will want to be overloading that. Okay, the next principle is specificity, and that means that anything we do needs to be specific to the sport and activity that we want to do. So the definition in ACSM for that one is the observation that fitness performance improves through training movement patterns and intensities of a specific task and fitness type, e.g. strength, power, endurance, or flexibility. So the idea is that we need to make sure our training is specific to what we want to improve. So if we're trying to get better at 5-minute hills, then we might want to go and train 5-minute hills. The most obvious one is being specific to your sport as well. So if you are wanting to get stronger on the bike, then perhaps bench press isn't the best exercise. You might want to be doing squats or deadlifts or something like that. So that's, being specific is very important. So clearly the best swimmer isn't going to be the best cyclist because their training is specific to swimming. So it's pretty fundamental, but it gets down into the detail as well in terms of types of events that you're training for. Say on the track, there's different types of events that require specific performance objectives. So it's a very important one to look into as well. The next one I've got here is recovery. Now that isn't listed on the ACSM list, but I wanted to add it in here because there's an important one that people miss. So recovery, if we don't have adequate recovery from the overload, then we won't progress. We'll just keep getting tighter and maybe get injured or even get overtrained. So recovery is very important. So in order to progress and move upwards to the next level, or to get better at what we're doing, we need to recover properly from it before we do the next stress. So that leads us into the next one, which is progression. And progression is the gradual and systematic increase in training stress to maintain tissue overload and thus provoke continual training adaptation. That's what ACSM says. So basically we need to continually change the stress to get a little bit harder, a little bit longer, or whatever what we're trying to improve. We need to change it in order that we're making progress. So this might be, say we're doing interval sessions, we might slightly increase the length of the interval. You might add another interval at the same length. You might go harder for those intervals. And that's the sort of thing we need to do. We need to have little bits of progress along the way so that we are gradually progressing. Okay, the next one is reversibility. Now this is one that is also often overlooked, but it's basically could be summed up as detraining. So when you no longer train, and when you cease training a specific type of training or a specific exercise, or say strength or anaerobic or aerobic or whatever the work you're doing, if you stop doing that, then you're going to lose those benefits. The description here in the ACSM guidelines is the observation that withdrawal of tissue loading results in loss of beneficial fitness or performance adaptation. So yeah, as we stop doing that type of training, we're going to lose the benefits. Pretty straightforward, but it can often be overlooked when people decide that they're going to have 2 or 3 or 4 weeks off at the end of the year. It only takes, say, 20 days to lose a good majority of your aerobic fitness. There's lots of things that you lose quite quickly, so it's something you need to look at when you're planning your training program. You don't want to be stopping doing certain types of training and then losing the benefits of that. So we need to either keep it progressing or maybe look at some sort of maintenance training. So it's one of my twins yelling at me out there running around. So some sort of maintenance training just to keep that fitness level. The next one is individualization, or also sometimes said to be individual differences. So as you'll know, everyone's a little bit different, so we're all made up a little bit differently, so we've got different talents and abilities. So as a result, we'll adapt to training differently. So some of us might be better at aerobic work, and others might be better at anaerobic work. Some people might be bigger and stronger, whatever. There's all sorts of internal differences as well, so we can't assume that one person's going to respond the same as a different person to a particular type of training. So we need to look at this as well. So the definition here is the modification of training to account for an athlete's unique capacity for and response to training. So yes, everyone's different, and we need to account for that when planning our training. And the last one is periodization. So the definition, as they describe it in ACSM, is the planned, systematic and structural variation of a training program over time. So it's really looking at the big picture and how we divide up our training year into particular areas to work on. So a typical cycling training plan would involve a base type period, probably, depending on how you're going about your plan, but this is just typical. A base type training where you do a lot of aerobic work, maybe some strength, some other things that might work on your aerobic conditioning. So that might be your base period, and then you move into a build phase or period, and that would be maybe looking at improving your threshold a bit, some more speed type work or things that are going to bring you up for racing. And then another phase or period would be, say, the race period, which would be a lot more maintenance. So looking at keeping all those areas fit and not detraining or not reversing, as we described before. And that might be the final one. So periodization, yeah, so planning each block of time and the big picture, so the months and years. Also involves things like transition at the end of the year, when you're not actually specifically training towards a certain goal, but maybe just maintaining or having a bit of a recovery period for the year. So there we go, that's the basic principles of training. Hopefully that's helpful if you're looking at designing your own training program, or wondering why we do things the way we do here at Fitlab, or your coach does things a certain way. So yeah, those are the principles we need to look at when we're designing training programs. So hopefully that's useful. Okay, have a great week, and yeah, hopefully get out of the bunker soon.